Our first presentation is going to be by Tim Foreman, right next to me, and it's going to be on the basis for any sound and information-driven decision that you may make in your production environment, and that is data. And while collecting data may not be the most difficult task, we actually want to concentrate on the follow-up question, which is how to make the most of that data. And that, of course, brings us to data science. And here I have an expert in the field, and that is Tim Foreman. He is R&D manager at Omron. And Tim, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So let's see if is working. So my presentation today is about how to empower people with the use of data. And this is all part of the direction that Omron is going for the coming 10 years. How can we get the most out of data? And I think everybody has a factory that generates data. So even if you think the factory is not generating data, you're wrong. There's a lot of data being generated as you go in your factory. So what can you do with this data, or how can you get access to that data? So we discovered along the way that a lot of customers come to us and say, okay, I would like to improve this or that. Or actually, a couple of years ago, customers would come to us and say, I've heard about AI, this sexy thing, what can I do with AI? I have a lot of data, but what to do with it? And when I asked, okay, what is your problem? What do you want to solve with it? They were looking at me like, I don't know, I just have a lot of data. And I pretty quickly learned that that's not a viable business model, right? So we started to talk to customers that had actual problem. They wanted to check the quality of every product coming out of their production process, or they wanted to improve the quality of their machine, have higher uptime, things like that. So that was the first lesson learned. Does the customer have a problem to help them with? Then we learned that if they have an actual problem and they want to get started, we learned the hard way that it's not a good idea to immediately jump into that problem and get going. So we simplify the process and we say, okay, good that you have a problem, but let's take it slow. Let's get to know each other and get to know your machine and get to know your process first. So for that, we introduced step number 1. So we do a fast assessment, and the assessment is, of course, on your process, on your machine, what data is coming out, how can we get our hands on this data. But at the same time, you get to know us, you get to know if you can collaborate with Omron as a service provider, but we also get to know you. What is your skill level? Are you ready to go this journey? Or are you still thinking about fixing things in metal and bending things and putting in screws? So that's step number 1. And then you may think, okay, if we're both happy to continue, what's next? Are we then going to solve my problem? No, there's another step before we go there. So the second step is we are going to do some actual data collection. And we have learned that during this process, already the first value generation begins. Because we are going to connect to your real machine, we are going to get data, and together with you, we are going to look at this data and say, okay, what does it look like? Is this what you expect? Or is there something strange happening maybe already? We had customer cases where there was sensor data coming out of the machine, but we discovered the sensor data was always 0. Already from a data science perspective, you can think, sensor that's always 0, what's the value of that sensor? So we asked the client, and they went to the machine and they pulled out the cable, and at the end of the cable, there was no sensor. So they discovered that there was a cable break. And by already fixing this cable break, they improved the quality of their machine. And I see people smiling, and I in the beginning I thought maybe I cannot use this example, right? And visiting other customers, I was a little bit careful to share this information. But every time I did, there was always they always recognize this. It's in every factory these things happen, they do happen. So by getting the data out and showing it to you, already the first value comes in. So you are recognizing, hey, a flat line is of course obvious, but sometimes the synchronization of data is also information to you to discover, now I know why sometimes the machine gets stuck and we need to kick it or restart it. We need to fix something in the PLC program to avoid this situation, and it will not happen again. So by just this exercise, nothing with AI, nothing artificial intelligence, just human intelligence, you can already improve a lot the machines that you're using or the process that you're using. So now we are ready for this third step. So if you want to dive with us into, okay, what is the things that you really came with? This is my problem. I want to go from 80% uptime to 90% uptime. Or I have a product, I'm producing products every 3 seconds, and it's taking me a lot of effort to do quality inspection for every product. And can we do something about that? So now we are ready to go in this step. So we can focus on the information that's coming out of your machine already and dive into that specific problem. So for instance, if we're talking about this product coming out of your factory every second, and it's impossible to do quality inspection by a human being for all the products. So what do? You go for statistical sampling, right? So you take here and there, you take a sample and you're going to inspect it under a microscope or something. And you hope that you pick the right ones and they don't end up at your customer. However, every now and then you may miss something. And what happens then? So they asked us, can you please help us to do a real measurement of every product that comes out every second? And within Omron we have the technology to do that. So we can connect our equipment and measure data coming out of the machine at millisecond speed. And if you make then a profile out of that data, you can see if this profile is as expected or is not as expected. And by that you can filter out the good and the bad cases. This helped one of our clients to prevent products going out in the field, and it saved them a lot of issues. Of course, you can think of that their client is not going to be angry with them, but there's more. So they're also, usually if you recognize by statistical sampling that there's a problem, you may discover it after 1 hour if you're lucky. You may discover it after 5 hours if you're lucky. But how many products did you produce in 5 hours if they are coming at the speed of 1 per second? So you have a lot of scrap, which is not good for the environment. Nobody happy with that. So if you can immediately stop your machine when the problem occurs, it gives you a lot of value. We also have a fourth step. So step number 1, 2, 3 are mostly connected to brownfield situations. You have a machine, you have a process, and you have a problem, and you want to improve your situation. If you want to think about, I'm going to make a new machine, how can I make a new machine with a design in mind that also takes the data model into your consideration? Many machine builders, they are very, very good at mechanical design. Over the last couple of years, they had to become also better in electrical design. They had to become better in software design. But now they also have to think about data. So in the past, the functionality of the machine to do the right thing, of course that's very important, it should be there. But I think what's going to be more and more important is the data that's going in or out of your machine. When I visit customers, depending on the situation, I sometimes say to them, I think you probably make very stupid machines. Sometimes they start to smile, sometimes they become angry with me. But after my conversation, they realize that yes, what the machines can do is to produce something according to the normal way. But is there any additional intelligence in that machine? Do they know what the operator is doing? Do they know what products are coming in the machine? They usually have no visibility on that. So from that point of view, I think the machines of yesterday are a little bit stupid. And data is going to be the center point of the future machines. So that is what we can talk about if we go to the co-creation phase. Together, the services that we offer to you to help you go from step 1 to step 4 is a part of our iBelt services that Omron offers to you. So how do we do it? I think I already explained to you a little bit how we do it, but I have a picture here to show it. So this is your factory, and you have a machine in your factory. So how to get that data out of the machine might sound easy. In the introduction it says, yeah, get the data and then start to look at the value of the data. But the reality shows that 80% of the time that you do by this exercise to get value out of data goes into getting the data. I think more than 50% of the projects worldwide, they stop during this process because they discover it's too much work or too hard or too difficult to get the data. You can probably imagine that in a lot of factories there's still a lot of data handwritten. The maintenance guy comes in, he does something, he writes down on some maintenance logbook how to get this data into your... You can imagine that's not always easy. So within Omron we have developed a product that can easily connect to your machine. So it's a product that has a special software on it, and it can talk all the different communication channels, and you can just connect to the machine, and if the information is there, we can get it out. That's only step number one. So if you have access to the data, you still want to manipulate it, you want to clean it up, you want to compress it, you might want to combine things before you ship it somewhere else. Because shipping information from A to B might sound very easy and cheap to you, because we all do with our mobile phones, but in the reality it's not so cheap. It's quite expensive to move data from A to B. So it's maybe better to filter already some information locally before you ship it to another place. So shipping to another place could be a cloud solution or a data space. As you can see on our booth, we have solutions for that. So for instance, with the modern technology, IDSA technology, you can make a secure and sovereign data connection between your local data pool on your machine and your data space. And from there you can allow service providers to help you analyze this data. As I just explained, we are one of those service providers that can help you do this with our IBAT services. And we will follow step 1, 2, 3, 4. And in this way, we will be able to generate this value for you. Some examples we achieved is we achieved 5% less downtime. 5% to some of you may sound, well, that's not so much. But if you calculate it in hours and in terms of lost profit, it easily adds up. And one of our clients had so much lost profit that we fixed for him, he recruited an engineer to accelerate this kind of activities for him. And the second example I think I already mentioned in my previous slides. So saving a lot of scrap, making sure your reputation, your brand image is saved. We also have, with this specific example, this client, they brought the car manufacturer, it was in the car industry, they brought to their facilities to show how today they are solving their quality inspection real time for every product, not by sampling just the subset of that. So until now I was talking about data and mainly focusing on the engineers that want to use data to improve the quality of the product or improve the quality of the machine. But you can of course also use data to improve the life and the operators. The operators in the factory, they should also get our attention, right? To make their life better and make their work easier to do and the quality of their products to be better. So also on our fair today, we have a demonstrator where we show how by collecting data of what the operator is doing, the machine can learn from your experienced operator how to best assemble a product, in which order it is better to assemble a product faster with less probability to make a mistake, and that information is captured in the machine. And of course nowadays, where people are not working for the same employer like me for 30 years or more, it's very important that this information is captured in a way. So if an operator is working in your factory for a year and then disappears, maybe he's promoted or he's going to another place or another machine, or you want to ship your machine from China, you want to ship it to South America, and how to get this information about how to best operate the machine from A to B. So in that way, with this, by having the machine learn from the operator and try to understand what is the best way to do a certain task, we also use data to give value to the operator to have them do a better job. So this is a famous saying by the founder of the company: to thrill the work of the machine and to man the thrill of further creation. I think this is still a very valid statement. Also with data science, this is very valid. and I wish you a lot of fun creating value with data. So that's my presentation for today. Thank you very much.